excited to have you here, man.
I'm very excited to be here. You guys are awesome. You've been amazing. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you all. You've been absolutely fantastic, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and many of you have been in panels all weekend, so you know the drill. Of course, the strike is still ongoing, and so we're not able to take questions from the audience. But it has been really fun to kind of get all these different perspectives on working from these same questions, and it allows us to get a little more personal, ask some fun questions that we don't normally have time to ask because, you know, we have to ask about all the obvious stuff. So thank you for agreeing to be with us here and have a nice chat. Let's start out. Let's go all the way back. Little Andy Serkis, growing up in the UK. What first drew you to acting? When did you know you wanted to become an actor?
I mean, to be fair, I didn't grow up wanting to become an actor. I was a painter, is what I wanted to be. From the age of 7, I picked up some oil paints. I was given some oil paints and I started painting them. And that was what really drove me throughout all my early and formative years. Telling stories through paint and characters and model building and all of that kind of stuff. And then when I went to college, which I went to study visual arts at Lancaster University, in the first year you had to do another course, a subsidiary course in the first year, and I was like, I have no idea you have to do this. So, but there was a good theatre studies department, so I started making props and designing posters for the shows and sets and so on, and then I gradually got involved in performing, and by the end of the first year, I realised that in fact it was acting. That I played one particular role, which was an epiphany. It was like the fact of walking in someone else's shoes and mind and embodying that character. I hadn't experienced anything so powerful, and it just made me want to act. And then I called my parents, and they were horrified that I was going to be an artist in the first place. So when I called them up to say I was going to be an actor, it was just like a horrendous silence at the end of the phone.
What I think is fascinating about that is your entry into that probably still informed your acting because you are one of the greatest living physical performers of our generation, and you're so building models and studying the human form. Given that the specific area of acting that you went into that's fascinating to me. But how do you, as a young acting student, figure out that mocap wasn't even a thing when you started acting? So how do you discover this very kind of niche area of acting?
Well, I mean, look, when I started acting, I was able to. My first entry into the professional world was in theatre, and I was working in a rep theatre, or what you would call stock theatre, and I was with one company for a year and a half, and I did 14 different plays back to back. So I was doing Shakespeare and modern plays and pantomimes and Brecht and all manner of different playwrights, contemporary playwrights, great playwrights, and of course when you're in that situation, you're creating characters all the time, and so you're rehearsing during the day and performing another character at night. So you had to find a way into the psychology of a role, the physicality of a role, the vocal nature of the part you're playing. And so that was just like the greatest training ground, to be honest. And so learning how to use your body to create, not just to create physicality, but to create, reflect the psychological aspects of the character and the vocal was very much a part of when eventually, years and years. I mean, I did loads of theatre before I started getting into film and television, and then of course the film. Of course, we can't name because we're not allowed to name.
Don't worry, we all know it.
There was a particular film series of films, and I played a particular character which demanded the immersion. Because it would have been impossible to actually cast someone to play that role because of the nature of the physicality and the look and the diminutive nature of the character. So this technology I happened upon working with Peter Jackson and the amazing visual arts and visual effects team down in New Zealand, or the film that cannot be named, and it was just like I instantly felt. It was the second kind of epiphany of my life, really, which is I found a 21st century acting tool which enabled you to become anything. That you could literally, without costume and makeup, but just this technology allowed you to climb into the soul of this other being.
And literally play any size. And we've seen you play so many different sizes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What's incredible is I think that because that technology has emerged along with the kind of current generations, you've inspired a lot of people who wouldn't have even thought, oh, this is something I can do. We get a lot of questions when we can take questions from the audience of what's your advice, but what's your specific advice to people who want to become mocap or movement actors?
Well, I mean, I have to say, I have never ever thought acting in motion capture or performance capture, as it's called now, because it's the whole of the performance capture in its entirety, not just movement, not just motion.
Yeah.
But I really don't believe there is any special skill to be had in it. It's just fully immersing in a character. And, you know, whether you're wearing a costume and makeup or a motion capture suit, and in effect it's a kind of digital makeup,
right.
You know, it's what's inside. And really, performance capture taught me about screen acting. In terms of screen acting, it taught me stillness. It's not about overly pantomiming a character. It's actually really making the character still, because when you're part of the rehearsal process is looking at a screen, and you're in a suit with markers on and a head-mounted camera, you look into a screen, and if you start to move, you know, you're moving, you can see the character moving in real time. So you're, in effect, the puppeteer and the marionette of this avatar at the same time, and then you can calibrate that, so you can build in, you can ask the animators or the CG artists who you're working with on stage to dial in kind of a more crooked back, or, you know, if that's, so you end up forming this relationship with it's a bit like, in more conventional terms, when you first get a costume as an actor, and you're standing in front of a mirror, and you're kind of going, yeah, this jacket makes me feel right for, you know, a particular role. That's what you're doing with a CG character. You're engaging with the avatar.
Absolutely. You know, the ongoing debate year after year, especially when award season comes along and we have more and more performance capture performances every year, and they get more and more advanced in technology, is when you know, Hollywood as it is, or the awards you know, committees are finally going to recognize these performances as they deserve to be recognized. How, like, personally, as one of those actors, how close or far away do you feel like we are from that?
I mean, it's incredible. This technology has been around now for 2 decades.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the journey with it, of course, people were ignorant of exactly what it meant,
right.
and how it was achieved, and how close to acting it was. So they could have been forgiven in those days for not understanding, but you know, we've had 2 decades of actors playing roles using performance capture, and not only for cinema, but for TV shows now, obviously video games, and the incredible performances in video games. You know, really extraordinary performances, and all of the new media, all the meta stuff that's coming out now. You know, I think it's kind of crazy that acting performances, of which we've seen so many now, are still, it's not even recognised by the acting union, Screen Actors Guild, as acting, which is insanity, and has to change.
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's kind of shift gears and continue, as it were. You know, you mentioned being a visual artist and a painter, but when you were a kid, was there something else that you wanted to be, or do you kind of always remember wanting to go into those fields?
No, one of my huge, I had lots of hobbies as a kid, but one of the things that really has driven my life in a major way is climbing. I'm a mountaineer, and I've climbed kind of all over the world in various different places, and I adore being in the mountains. I'm not necessarily a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, and that is where I find a great deal of spirituality in the mountains and at high altitude.
I hope you all see the irony in Serkis being in a mountain. Thank you. That even in itself is interesting because still to me kind of informs the physicality and the way you have to move your body to not die, basically. But if you weren't acting, do you think you'd be a professional mountain? Like, if you weren't acting, what do you think you would be doing as a profession?
Well, I mean, I do have a lot of hobbies. I went through a whole phase of. I also grew up playing music, and I play tenor sax, and I've always played jazz. I'm a big jazz fanatic. So apart from mountains, I played in various different bands in my early careers. In fact, when I became an actor in theatre, music was very much part of it, because at the time a lot of actors were hired and they could also play instruments to provide kind of musical interludes in plays and shows. So I've always loved. I'm a massive jazz fan. My big inspirations are Miles Davis and John Coltrane and all of the kind of the late 50s, early 60s jazz maestros.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of answered my next question. Is like, what are some things you like to do in your free time? Are there any other kind of weird hobbies that you have?
I'm really into photography in a big way.
Yeah.
I adore the art form and that way of, again, it's almost like, for me it's a great form of expression. It's a great way of sort of understanding people and physicality and street photography is what I'm really into.
Have you ever thought about putting out like a coffee table book or?
Yeah, I mean I'm working on one.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
Awesome. One which I've been working on for many years, but I think it's getting to an interesting place.
I love that's so cool. We'll have to look up that. You mentioned music. Like besides jazz, what are some of your favorite musicians and bands?
I'm a huge Tom Waits fan.
Okay.
I grew up with Ian Dury and the Sex Pistols and then Happy Mondays and the Manchester music scene.
Are you a Joy Division guy?
Well,
we were just gonna derail the tangent. Talk about post-punk from Manchester. And what are some other things you do to relax when you're not filming? Like, how do you couple this?
I have 3 children, and we spend time walking actually in the hills and outside of London. We go off for weekends and. They're just we're just sort of empty nesting at the moment. They're just all leaving, so it's quite weird actually.
Yeah, for sure. Who is someone? I'm sure you've gotten to meet a lot of your heroes, but who is someone? And it doesn't even necessarily have to be another actor. Who's somebody you'd love to meet that you've yet to meet?
I would love to meet. There's an amazing photographer, female. Photographer from South Africa called Zanele Muholi, and she is, if you ever get to see her stuff, the most incredible artist, and I've always really loved her work. And kind of music-wise, I actually had the great pleasure of meeting Tom Waits recently, and he's just amazing. I work with actors all the time, obviously, and I don't really get kind of I don't get fanning kind of other actors, but certainly jazz musicians.
It's like the rock star.
Weak at the knees,
yeah. It's like every actor wants to be a rock star, so you get starstruck by the rock stars. Who's somebody you'd love to have dinner with, living or deceased?
It would be Nina Simone, actually.
Okay, wow. That'd be a pretty good dinner.
Yeah.
Do you have any pets?
We have 2 cats called Delilah, and Ted. And Dilly is the mother of Ted. Ted is enormous and really needs a lot of exercise because and Dilly is very lithe and sweet and kind of she's too much of a generous mum. She just lets him eat all the time. It's just constantly separating.
I like to imagine you on your walks, but instead of walking a dog, you're walking your enormous overweight cat. Just like in the neighborhood. This one is kind of random, but what are your fall traditions? Do you like this time of year? Is Halloween as much of a... Halloween feels like it's such a American thing, and especially now, it's so into the spooky season, as it were. Is that...
It's definitely grown as a thing over the last 20 years in the UK, 25 years. You know, I mean, trick or treating is everyone does that. And to be fair, they generally always have, but it's grown. I mean, that you never used to see people's houses decorated to the scale in which you guys do. You know?
Do y'all decorate your house? I imagine you have a few friends that could probably do some pretty crazy decorations for your house. Yeah.
We do. We used to. I mean, but not so much.
Who is somebody that was kind of a childhood inspiration or a hero to you that you really looked up to? Because you are that for so many people, and so it's so fun to hear who was the Andy Serkis in your life, as it were.
Wow. Do you know who I used to love when I was growing up was the Harlem Globetrotters.
Would not have guessed that was going to be your answer, but again, it makes a lot of sense with the physicality.
I was massively into them. I was Bruce Lee.
Okay, that one made sense for sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure as you were trained to become an actor, you had some odd and weird jobs. Did you have a particularly weird, kind of just everyday job?
Oh yeah. One of the worst jobs I ever had was working in a deodorant factory, which you do by hand, putting the ball bearings into the top of the roll of deodorants, which is the most.
That's a job.
It was, yeah. It was just like for hours and hours and hours, just pushing. So it really hurt the palm of your hands after a while.
Depending on your age, you didn't know this, but you could have put on deodorant that was assembled by Andy Serkis. Who knew? Now people are going to bring deodorants up to you at conventions at a time. Which sometimes these conventions, guys, could use a little more deodorant. So not a bad idea. I've always wondered why that would be the first company I would go to for sponsorship at a convention. Segueing perfectly into conventions. You've started to do these, which is so amazing because it just the connection that we get to have with you face to face, and I'm sure likewise for you to see fans and connect with them. Do you have a particular memorable convention experience that comes out? I'm sure you have a ton.
Oh, I mean, look, I have to say, I've really enjoyed the process of meeting, people at conventions. It's an incredible thing, and I feel incredibly privileged to have the access to meeting you guys, because to have feedback and response to all the things this is all for you. All the stuff that we or I have been involved in over the last 2 decades is for you. And to get feedback directly and to know how much it means and how much it impacts your lives and knowing that makes me want to work harder and push harder and investigate and develop and get under the skin of characters that will help tell the stories that you are passionate about. And that's a really big and kind of learning curve, is the reciprocal nature of what we do. That our stories only live because you are so passionate about them. And we all know that storytelling is an age-old tradition, a basic human form of connection. And to actually be able to sit in a community of like-minded people and share that, and to have the response it just feels it's connected to a very ancient tradition.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people have given you, there's so much cool fan art and unique kind of, as you were exactly saying, expressions of people's own kind of artistic creativity and how they've been inspired by the stuff that you've been in. Is there a particular gift that sticks out in your mind that someone's given you? It was just very cool.
I've had a recent flurry of floaties given to me, actually. I can't talk about the character, but I think you probably know what.
Yeah, we all get it. Yeah.
Yeah, they've been pretty nice, and yeah.
And are you a collector? Do you ever buy anything at the shows?
I used to, but I've got so much stuff. I have so much stuff, and quite frankly, I'm forbidden from really bringing anything else home.
It's like Guillermo del Toro had to get a whole separate house for all this stuff. Yeah. This one's fun. Who would you stand in line for an autograph or a photo op at a convention?
I would have stood in line for Stan Lee for sure.
Absolutely.
I would do that a lot.
He's absolutely worthy of standing in line for it. All right, now we're getting into the random section. Andy Serkis, do you have a useless talent or skill? What's your most... I feel like you've put a lot of them probably to use that we've seen on screen, but do you have a useless one?
Gosh. I suppose, yeah, I can play the, do that.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty useless.
Yeah. It's weird how many people this weekend that has been.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was being really original.
No. It's a good go-to this weekend.
It's quite a good one, though.
What do you feel like this is kind of posed in a negative way, so I'll try and put a positive spin. What do you feel like you wish you could be better? It says what do you suck at, but we don't like it that way.
No, let me think about what I suck at. You know what? I know my mind is always full. It's literally bursting, because I've got often many projects on the go at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think I'm very bad at being in the present, and I want to be better at it. I really do. It's because there's nothing worse than being with someone when they're not, when their mind's going, and you're kind of trying to get their attention, and I'm that person sometimes. And I suck at.
Yeah, well, you felt very present here today, so you're doing a great job. This one is tough. It's the notorious question that we've asked everyone all weekend. If you were stranded on a desert island, what's one book, one movie, and one album you would take with you?
The album would be a Thievery Corporation album called The Outer National Sound, which is amazing, and then the book would probably be, it would be a book of all of the great Renaissance painters. Actually, a book of Leonardo da Vinci's paintings actually would be great.
Wow.
And what was the other one?
A movie and a TV show.
Movie would definitely be Apocalypse Now, and I'm probably not the first person to say that this weekend, I'm sure.
Yeah. Though no one has said for a book how to get off a deserted island. Sounds like it would be a helpful book, but nobody said it, so I don't know. Or Castaway.
But I would actually really love to be on a desert.
Oh, okay, yeah. What about TV show?
TV show, White Lotus.
That feels appropriate for a desert island. Yeah, no one said Castaway for a movie, or Gilligan's Island, or Lost for a TV show. You'd want to escape, really, I think. Those are great answers, though. You also answered them way faster. That was a lot harder question. So I think you've thought about...
I really haven't.
It's like a fantasy to be on a deserted island. All right, we have about 15 minutes here, and it's the perfect amount of time to play two games, which you've graciously agreed to play. The first one is called This or That. So it's kind of a rapid fire, and we can kind of expand on the answers. But it is, for example, summer or winter.
Winter.
Okay. Novel or comic book?
Novel.
Bad haircut or bad dye job?
Or bad what?
Dye job. Like getting your hair done.
Bad dye job.
Okay. Werewolves or vampires?
Vampires.
All right. Play or musical?
Play.
Okay.
No, musical. No, play.
Have you done a musical?
I have, actually. I've been in cabaret. I played the MC in cabaret. I did a Sondheim musical called Company. I did a version of Some Like It Hot called Sugar. I played the Jack Lemmon part in that.
He sings too. What can he do? Art museum or history museum?
Ooh, that's interesting. I mean, I think art museum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cooking or being cooked for?
Oh, I definitely like to be cooked for. I'm a pretty hopeless cook. I used to be good and then I've become really bad. I actually was quite good and I am really bad. I'm just so out of practice.
Board games or video games?
Difficult. Video games, I think.
You play a lot of video games?
No.
Oh.
I don't play board games either, but I do, and I play more video games than board games.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, this one is pretty Texas specific, but it's still been fun. We had to call Bethany, and it was fun to ask him because of the frame of reference being very different. But In-N-Out Burger or Whataburger?
In-N-Out Burger
or Whataburger? Have you had?
Definitely In-N-Out Burger.
Yeah.
But I'm a vegetarian and I wouldn't eat a burger anyway.
Oh.
Unless it was a Beyond Burger.
Let's poll the audience. I know we're in Texas, but round of applause, In-N-Out Burger. Yeah, that's a lot more people, and I'm on your side. I know I did my Texan card vote for that, but I'm on your side. And then Whataburger.
I meant to say Whataburger.
Have you been to Texas a lot?
No, I've been to Austin and which I love. Yeah, Austin's awesome.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
And have you had much time when you've been in Texas to kind of get out and kind of see the sights?
No, I mean it's the promise of coming to a convention is amazing because it's just like you go to all these great places, but then often the convention centre is kind of out of the town or near the airport or whatever, So it's just having that little bit of time. Although I did go down to Dealey Plaza and I just missed the 6th floor museum. It's shut, but I think what I plan to do is to try and build it in so I get here a bit earlier and get the chance to spend more time.
Come back, get some good Texas.
But I do love the vibe here, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's very cool, and I think you Texans are really amazing people.
Well, the vibe loves you too, man. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, we'll keep going. This one's a weird one. I did not write these for the record. Confront a goose or confront a moose?
Want to confront a moose? I mean, you're going to get flattened, aren't you? I mean,
geese are pretty scary too.
But they're really that tough.
Which makes them scarier in a way. I don't know. It's a tough one. Okay, I know what you're going to say for this one, but I got to ask you anyway. Is it called football or soccer?
Who cares?
Alright, well that makes my follow-up question awkward. Arsenal or Spurs?
Arsenal!
Alright, there we go. Alright, so that wraps up that game, and that is perfect because we have just enough time to play the second game, and this is a finish the sentence game. So for example, the first one being, when I have a day all to myself, I actually more than likely will be working on something or other. For instance, having the opportunity to sit down and just focus on work actually is what I like to do during the day. Yeah, absolutely. The secret to a happy life is
trust.
Okay, all right, good. If I could teleport, I would teleport to.
I would teleport to. There's a mountain called Amadablam in the Himalayas.
And you just then you wouldn't have to climb it.
No,
you
exactly.
just go straight to the top.
Actually,
yeah. I cannot stand people who
don't listen to other people properly.
I would die without
my camera.
All right. Today or recently, I learned how to.
I learned how to tell lies.
All of this has been a lie. I will never forget the day when.
When my daughter was born, when Ruby was born in a birthing pool at home, and it was the most incredible experience.
Wow. I can never stop smiling when.
when I see my youngest son trying to pull the wool over my eyes.
If I could live in another time, I would choose.
I would definitely live in 1959 in New Orleans or in Harlem or New York, yeah.
That is a good answer. The one thing I will never regret is?
Taking a certain role that opened up an entire world to me.
We will never regret that either. One time a fan gave me
fingernail marks in the back of my neck.
You can choose to not tell that story, but we'd love to hear it. If you'd love to.
I was at Disneyland. I think it was just after.
It wasn't even in a convention. It was just like right at Disneyland.
No, it was after the third of the film, which we can't talk about, and it come out. And I was in Disneyland with my family, and this she must be about 12 or 13 girl came and put her she said, "Can I give you a hug?" I said, "Of course, absolutely." And she put her hands around me, and then held onto my neck, and it was just like, "Okay, that's it now. Thank you. That's great. This is really lovely of you, but this is a long time now." And then her family came along and tried to pull her off, and she wouldn't let go. And it was just like her brother and her brother's brother, there was just a whole family of about 8 people all gathered around trying to pull her off. And I was literally thinking, I really can feel the fingernails in the back of my neck. This is really this time to go.
And then she whispered in your ear, "Hi, Oh man, are you a theme park? You mentioned Disneyland. Are you a theme park guy?
Oh, I love going to places like that, especially with family. Yeah.
What's your favorite ride at Disneyland?
Probably. It's a small world. No one. Now we know you're lying. No one ever says it's a small world. I like. With Blue Bayous,
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, last one. Last time I got starstruck, it was with.
It was actually probably meeting Robert De Niro for the first time. Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty good one, and not an easy guy to not get starstruck around. Yeah. Well, we have a few minutes, and I hate to cut it short, so I want to ask you. You've recently moved into directing with a movie that we can't talk about, but we all know that you're a director and you've directed. Is that something you ever imagined for yourself or aspired to be, or did you just kind of find yourself directing? And I guess, how does your performance as an actor inform being a director?
I mean, I always wanted to. I think it goes back to being an artist and telling stories visually. That was always important to me. So I started making short films and animations when I was a kid, and then properly when I was an art student, started making short films, and I just love the process. So it sort of grew, and then as I got involved in screen work and TV and film, and then sort of. It felt very natural. It just felt a very natural thing to do. I think I always count myself lucky because of my first theatre job and working with a theatre director who basically said, what we do as artists is we provide a service. We go out, we find evidence or research on the stories that we want to tell, and we come back and we share them with an audience. And so everything that I get involved in, or most things that I get involved in, I always feel like it's, again, a reciprocal thing, that it's a story that and the projects that really interest me are kind of socially driven stories, stories that hopefully change people's perspective or give a fresh viewpoint to a story that you think you might know. And so I think that's always been part of my appetite for being a filmmaker and storyteller. And in terms of actually directing, I've had so many great inspirations, but Peter Jackson has been an incredible inspiration to me, and many of you will know that he asked me to direct on the film which we can't talk about, but the second unit, and just at the time when I was seriously sort of turning into an aspirant director, and he was another huge inspirer because he creates the right atmosphere for actors to work in, and that is, from my understanding of acting, hugely important, because you do work with directors who are focused on the vision, who are focused on the scale of the project, but aren't necessarily good communicators in terms of performance. It's surprising, but it's true. But to find all-round directors who can really connect with actors and elicit, very interesting performances out of actors is what I've learned over the years. And I think actually, actor directors are also they're great at doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you find it hard now that you have such a hungry appetite and you are doing that, the kind of the struggle between the two appetites, or acting and directing, and finding the time to do it all?
Yeah, it's an interesting point at the moment. And there is a film that I can talk about, which is a non-studio picture rather, and so a film that I've been working on for a long time, 12 years, is Animal Farm, George Orwell's Animal Farm.
Oh wow!
Which will be coming out at some point next year, and. Those are the projects, they take such a long time to develop. And developing film is a painful process. It's also very exciting, because when you first have the idea, it's so thrilling, and then you have to put in the graft, which takes year after year after year. So that is happening right now in the middle of production. And at the same time, I'm just about to go back to the theatre for the first time in 20 years. And so literally, next week I go into rehearsals of a play whilst I'm completing Animal Farm. So it's going to be a very busy time. But managing, as you say, both appetites.
Is that play on the West End, or is it on Broadway? Or?
It's actually at the Riverside Studios in London, and it'll more than likely transfer at some point. And it's thrilling. I'm so excited about it. I'm really looking forward to doing it. It's an amazing cast. Woody Harrelson, myself, and a fantastic Irish actress called Louisa Harland, who's in a TV show called Derry Girls. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Yeah.
Well, we're always just so excited, whether you're playing a human character or a performance capture character, or you're off screen behind the camera, or you're on stage, whatever you're doing, just so fascinating to watch, your kind of many forms and many faces. And thank you so much for being here. It's really been such a great chat, and a fascinating chat. And thank you for being a great crowd.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely.